topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon. Hello, Los Angeles. We are so excited about today's show, and our guest, our expert, doesn't even know this. Last week, we got a phone call from one of the largest hospitals in the United States, MD Anderson. They are a cancer research hospital, and they somehow heard our guest, Dr. Gupta, talking about weight loss. And there's 6 of them today that are sitting back. They're going to listen to our weight loss show. But when you've got experts in their field that want to hear another expert, it doesn't get any better than that. I wanted to surprise Dr. Gupta because he doesn't know anything about this. And I want to welcome everybody, because without Dr. Gupta and his clinic, Mindful Weight Loss, we wouldn't be doing this here in Los Angeles. The show is sponsored by Dr. Gupta. And I got to tell you, I'm a religious person, and I think this show is going to touch lives, and I think it's going to save lives. We've just opened up in Las Vegas. Dr. Gupta is going to be doing Las Vegas also. Good afternoon, Dr. Gupta.
Hey, how's it going? I'm very surprised. Thank you.
Yeah, when I got the phone, I went, "You're kidding me," because everybody's heard of MD Anderson.
Yeah, for sure.
It's one of the top hospitals in the United States. And it's funny how God works. Somebody heard our show we did.
That's amazing.
And they were so impressed. And if you're not watching on TV, Dr. Gupta's got this huge smile on his face right now.
I'm grateful to you, Steve, for the opportunity and for
reaching out. I got to tell you something. I really believe, because weight loss is so important, Dr. Gupta. I mean, whether it's high blood pressure, heart condition, I mean, it all centers around weight loss. And I got to tell you that just from the few shows we've done so far, I'm telling you, we are going to touch lives, and this is going to become one of the biggest shows, podcast shows in the United States, no doubt about it.
I'm really excited.
So, you know what, we're getting all these new listeners and viewers. Tell everybody about your practice.
Yeah, of course. So I run, I'm an obesity medicine board certified physician, also internal medicine. I run this practice called Mindful Weight Loss. It's located in Redondo Beach, but we see a lot of patients virtually as well. I'm licensed now in 6 different states, in Nevada, Maryland. I see remote patients, Florida, New York. I'm getting licensed in Washington, Texas. It's a bunch of them. It's on the website. But basically, I really believe in a holistic and comprehensive approach using medication with coaching, therapy, and mindfulness, and also just a lot of support. So, we see everyone in terms of me or my NP, Sarah, we see everyone every month. We have a bunch of health coach appointments, so that's twice a month additionally, and then we're just always available. And we've shown in the research, just more support helps. And just with something that's so intrinsically connected to everything else in our lives, with weight and health, so it's just really important to be there for our patients.
Dr. Gupta, people don't know this yet, but you were like one of the top internists in the United States, and you took that practice. You have completely changed what you do now.
Yeah, so I started first of all, thank you for that. I feel very flattered by saying that. But I started as a hospitalist, so working in the hospital. I was in management for a company called Optum, and I started this a few years ago because I've struggled with weight a lot of times in my life as well. And when I learned about this field, right, in med school, it was always like, oh, we'll do the weight, we'll do the lifestyle, but let's go treat their diabetes and hypertension and heart disease and all that. But then when I first got into this field, and I learned that there's actually a way that you could help people basically prevent 30 years of disease, right? Like if you help people lose weight, you're preventing 30 years of diabetes, 30 years of high blood pressure. That's preventing that heart attack or stroke, like when someone's 50, 60, 70, and not only them, but their kids, their family, their jobs, and in those 30 years, you're basically changing their entire lives. It just feels so big, and I just when I work in the hospital, which, is also an honorable endeavor, but often you see people when they've already had all the stuff, right? And there's not as much you can do, but this is preventing them from getting into that place in the first place. So I describe it as one of the most gratifying things I've ever done.
Before I met Dr. Gupta, I'm going to give a big secret about myself. Well, if you're watching, you can tell I am definitely overweight. But a year ago, I have a nephrologist because I've got kidney problems. First thing he says is, you got to get rid of the weight. I have sleep apnea. First thing they said is, you got to get rid of the weight. Then I've also got the high blood pressure, kidney problems, but they're all related to weight.
Sure. So one of the unfortunate things is that's where the medical system stops, right? It says you got to lose weight. But then it's like, if it was that easy, we wouldn't.
Yes, that's right.
Right? Like 70% of us struggle with this weight. It's clearly not an individual thing. And, the central issue is this is all framed in what I call, just the willpower narrative, right? In that this is all our faults. All we got to do is eat less, move more. It's clearly wrong, right? It adds to our suffering, and it points to all the incorrect interventions. Instead, if you start from the biological perspective, and this is a function of our bodies in this food environment, then you can really get to kind of what actually works, right? And so, again, what I love about this field is it's not like telling the patient, oh, you just got to lose weight, and then that's it, and putting it all on the patient. It's like, okay, everyone's sitting there when they're told that, like, okay, how do I do this, right? If it was that easy, again. So we actually help the person go through all of those, figuring out how to actually do that in the context of their lives.
You know what, Dr. Gupta, it's kind of like, you see all these ads for these weight loss pills, instant pills that work. First of all, it's an individual thing. It's not a cookie cutter.
Oh, yeah.
And what you do is you find out what is causing the weight before you say, okay, here's pills, or take this or take that. And that's why so many people fail. Because of that.
Oh, 100%. And then we, in our first appointment, we spend like an hour talking to people, like getting to actually know people's lives, right? And I love how you said that. It is not a cookie cutter approach, right? And that's kind of also one of the pitfalls. Like everyone's like, oh, do this, like keto, everyone do Whole30, everyone do low carb, like low fat, all of it, right? It's just like the same thing's not going to work for the same person at the same stage of life in the same area or whatever. You got to take all of it into account, right? Like, does the person have kids? How's that? Like the family, what's the situation at the home, the job? Are you working from home? Are you working over there? What do you eat in the morning? Like we do very detailed histories to literally figure out what, from minute to minute, what a person's life is actually like. This is the only way you can figure out what things you can kind of fine tune to make this actually possible.
Now, I know people are going to go, well, I live in San Francisco.
Sure.
I mean, how are you going to treat me? Let's talk about that a little bit because, we've got such a large area that we cover.
Sure. So, I mean, we see people remotely, and we found that it works really well remotely too, right? Like, I mean, I think we've all learned during the last few years that a lot of stuff we previously thought we couldn't do remotely, we can, right? And so I think the main thing is, again, we're just available. We have one number that's always there, and there's a human on the other end, and we could talk to, right? So, like, I think, unfortunately, a lot of, a lot of companies, as people scale, especially, like, they separate the patient or the customer from another human, and we strive to not, we strive to always have someone there to support, to be there, irrespective if you're in San Francisco or Vegas or Tallahassee. We are there for that patient.
Dr. Gupta, we just got a text. I had to read it several times.
Yeah.
All it says is, my name is Dennis. I am a well-known actor. I've heard of Dr. Gupta, but my problem is I lose weight, and then not only do I end up gaining it back, but I gain back more than I originally lost.
Yeah.
How does your program help someone like myself? I have no idea who this actor is, but
that's a cool text. So I think that speaks to a lot of why this is hard and why I call it a disease, right? Because one of the issues is when we lose weight, our metabolism actually slows down. So you're like doing the same thing, and then your weight loss stops, and you get frustrated, and then you just eat a little bit more, and you start gaining weight again. And that's why, I tell all my patients, the number one thing you have to internalize is that this sucks and it's unfair, right? Otherwise, it drives you crazy. Right. And so how we, what we do, right, is that it's not about perfection, even a little bit. And we build that in right from the beginning. Instead, what it's about is coming back. Right. So we end up eating a little bit more. We practice coming back over and over to what works. And we do everything is 80%, not 100. And when I say that, it's really important in that I don't mean we aim for 100, settle for 80. I mean, I want 80, not 100. 100 is bad. So I guess to summarize, like, basically we address that by making sure whatever we're doing is sustainable, right? Because too often people do something and they're like, oh, I'm going to like only eat lettuce for like 7 years. And that never works, right? And so instead we figure out what is actually sustainable right from the beginning, so that, right? And, we practice a lot of self-compassion so that ultimately when we inevitably fail that one day or eat whatever or do whatever, we can come back to what works, right? And it's also, I think another answer to that would be, it's not about doing the same thing all the time. It's constantly adapting, right? So basically, like, always being there for our patients and helping them brainstorm all these challenges through the entire journey, not from the very beginning.
This is functional medicine, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's definitely what we try to practice, right? It's just like taking everything into account, whether it's all the way from like all the biological stuff and everything to like anxiety, depression, underlying, or like, like organization strategies, right? Like maybe that's causing some stress, like figuring out ways to do that, or sleep, right? Like sleep is a huge part, as we've talked about in previous shows. That's an important thing. But really thinking, or meal prepping, or just everything, right? It's all on the table. There's nothing off the table because it's all related, right? So we try to optimize all of it to continue to help, like, people like Dennis, inevitably when we lose weight and whatever we do, right, to figure out systems and structures in our lives to make that continue to be possible.
Well, the name of the clinic is Mindful. So you must really have to work with behavioral too, because
totally.
I mean, there's more to it than working out and diet.
Oh my gosh, 100%. Right? There's so much more to it than that. Like, that's just kind of like it's about how we do those things, right? And it's all about the behavior and how we organize our lives to make that actually possible, right? So I think that's kind of the key insight that I try to convey to my patients, right? It's not about trying harder. Like the whole culture, all diet culture is all about no pain, no gain. Oh, you just got to do this. Right? And instead, what we try to reframe, no, let's try to create structures in our lives that make this easy. So one example, if someone's coming in and eating, for instance, a lot of fast food or something, right? And it's like our first intervention is, okay, let's focus on trying to get stuff from the grocery store instead of instead of McDonald's or whatever, right? And if someone's like busy or desire or even like doesn't want to, instead and they're ordering DoorDash, I say, okay, let's look through DoorDash. Instead of pressing, the Taco Bell, we're gonna press like Ralph's and pick that button. So notice that it doesn't require any more effort. It's just effort applied in a different way, right?
It's like making better bad choices.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
you got two choices, and you're going to show people a better way, but you're going to take the emphasis off of just weight training and diet, because there's more to it than that.
Oh yeah, and I think even like taking that further, like often, like for example, my patients, if they're eating at night or whatever, right? And it's like first of all, again, it really has to start with compassion and taking all our reasons seriously. Like I tell my patient, I never use the word lazy, right? I never use any of that stuff, right? Because we have to take all of that seriously. Like if someone's coming home and eating some chips or whatever, right? Often our whole society is like, we have stressful days, we come home, we want to relax with our partner, right? So figuring out interventions where we can still get that relaxation with our partner and then substituting the chips for something else, right? And so like still giving people that same emotion and feeling that they need, but just in a more optimal way from this weight loss perspective.
Do you think that people who are looking for perfection are bound to not lose weight, but not have as much success because they're trying to be perfect? And you cannot be perfect with this, can you?
No, it's impossible to be perfect. And I think we all have this perfectionist impulse, because the thing is that certainty is easy for the mind, right? That all or nothing thinking, right? We all say like, it's either I'm always going to be low carb, or I'm always going to do this or do this or this, right? It never works. So that's actually part of the practice we, work with our patients. We work with, figuring out and like kind of deconstructing that, because that is the impulse that actually causes us, a lot of the failure, right? And it's like, I even do interventions sometimes, like, okay, someone's doing well, but I say, okay, eat something decadent on one day of the week and practice coming back from that afterwards, right? Because that practice of coming back is the most important practice, not just never eating that decadent thing, right? So it's just kind of like starting where people are, but yes, like figuring out ways to make it actually sustainable.
Dr. Gupta, is the scale your friend or enemy?
So it's an interesting question. So in terms of weight doesn't capture everything, right? We use weight as a metric, right? To capture, kind of to make sure what we're doing is working, right? Because we want to try to gain, our metrics and, whether we need to change something either with the medication or behavioral or whatever, right? But, especially as we lose weight, the weight is not an accurate measurement of what's going on. And so what we really do is we have a really good body impedance machine, but we want to measure body composition, right? How much is your fat mass percentage and your muscle mass, right? Because our goal is to make our fat mass go down and increase our muscle. So that's kind of like it stops becoming as relevant if you're talking about weight. In terms of stepping on the scale, I say, we do what's productive. Like some of that patients, that means they do it every day. Some just on our appointments. It just really depends what is productive for that one person, right?
I got to tell you, Dr. Gupta, I mean, first of all, I've got thousands of questions going through my head. And the way that you deliver, how you answer, I think that has to do with some of your success too, because people bleed off of that. It's like, Dr. Gupta really knows what he's talking about. And you're easy to listen to. I don't know if you understand that. It's the way your voice is, the way you deliver. And I predict that this is going to be our number one show without a doubt. I mean, we just had a celebrity call, which I'm dying to know what their last name was.
I'm so curious, yeah.
But the thing is, though, Dr. Gupta is going to teach you. This is not an info commercial. And I got to tell you, Dr. Gupta, there are so many, I mean, we could do a show on working out because
you're showing all of it.
We just had a guy called and said, is it 80% on what you eat or 80% of working out? That's a whole show right there.
I know. I know, like there's so much to every little field of this. And I have I want to bring on more people that do more shows. Like I have my health coaches who are amazing.
Oh yeah.
Staff members who are awesome. So I really want to include them within the discussion.
Oh, we would love that. If you're listening on radio, you can't see, we've been running the scroll. Doctor, to give everybody your phone number.
Yeah, of course. So you can just message us at any time for anything. It's 310-220-4543. So just message us and, we'll answer you right away.
Again, this is what a great show. And for a lot of times when we bring on a new expert, I'm a little nervous on what they're going to say, but I am just so excited about this show, Dr. Gupta. And we will let everybody know when we're starting next month in Las Vegas. And you're going to be on twice a month with us here in Los Angeles. So you're the best. I'll let everybody know when you're going to be back on again. Thank you so much, Dr. Gupta. And thank you for being our big sponsor of our show.
Yeah,
thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you again. That's Dr. Gupta. God, I love doing the show with him. And I know that I'm going to lose weight and it's going to help me health-wise. Well, now we're going to switch over from health to, we have so many people who own homes, own condos. And we know that because we got your emails. And your email said, why don't you do something, with someone who does cleanup, somebody who actually works with, there's, and I'm trying to describe it best I can describe because, some parts of the country people are eating right now, but we have households that the gunk that is building up in the house. And we're going to be talking about that today. I'm so excited about our next guest because they are one of the finest. I mean, literally one of the finest when it comes to cleanup. And we've talked so much already. My friend Raymond, and what he does, he only does mold removal. And we are going to talk about mold removal today. And believe it or not, it's going to be a whole show. And I'm so excited. Ray, welcome to the show.
Hi, Stephen.
I'm so glad because we had so many people that said, how come you don't do anything with mold removal? And I never really thought about it. The name of your company is Mold Zero, which is such a great name. And I want to give everybody your phone number. We'll also be running it on the scroll. It's 626-671-8885.
That's right.
And your website is moldzerollc.com. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I never realized there was so much to talk about when it comes to mold removal. And I guess the first thing we got to start off with, tell everybody about your company and your background.
Well, I think the best way to start too, along with who we are, we're a Southern California-based company. We started in Florida. So there's another Mold Zero in Florida. That's our company as well. But Rusty Tweed is running the one over in Florida, and I'm running the one here. And what we do in
where in Florida are you?
That's over close to the Clearwater area. Yeah.
Clearwater. Okay.
Yeah. So here in Southern California, we cover quite a bit of area. And what's the best thing to know about Mold Zero is that we're uniquely different than conventional or traditional mold companies. And I'm not trying to throw traditional mold companies under the bus by any means. And a lot of these guys, I know a lot of these guys, they're friends of mine. Okay. So I know a lot of these mold companies, but, for hundreds of years, 200 years, most mold companies, what they do is they try to remove the mold from the environment. It makes sense. If there's mold in your house, in your apartment, in your commercial building, whatever, let's try to get the mold out of there. So that's what everybody's been doing for years. The problem with that is mold spores are only 20 to 30 microns, which is invisible. For example, if this dot behind me, if you see this little dot there, and we're going to call that mold, that would literally be millions and millions of mold spores. So 20 to 30 microns is absolutely invisible. You can't see that.
Wow.
The second characteristic about mold that's really noteworthy is mold is doing what it does outside. And outside, it's doing nature's work. It's eating, procreating, and spreading. Eating, procreating, and spreading. It's getting ready for the next sequence of nature, right? So if it does colonize inside a structure, why wouldn't it do the same thing? So it's eating, procreating, and spreading inside. That means mold has a capability of spreading as fast as you could smell bacon throughout a house, which is pretty fast.
And mold can really make you sick too.
Yes, it can. And that's the other thing that's very elusive about mold is that, you'll talk to one person, one individual, they'll say, yeah, I can't stand being around mold. And you talk to somebody else and they'll say, I don't know, it's not a problem with me. So what they found out about 12 to 14 years ago, they found out that about 20 to 25% of people's DNA get very, very adversely affected by mold. Now, we're all on the spectrum. We're all on the spectrum to some greater or lesser degree, but 25% is very bad. Now, the other aspect of it is it also depends on how your immune system has historically defended itself against mold. So I've been in 6-member families where 2 of them are hospital sick. The next 2 have brain fog and respiratory problems. And the last 2 are maybe itchy or coughing a little bit. So you would think that all be uniformly the same. It depends on each individual too.
But you can't see it. Can you smell it?
You can smell something, but smell is such a arbitrary thing. I don't know what you're smelling, and you don't know what I'm smelling.
Right.
So people all the time will talk to our inspectors, and they'll say, "Do you smell that?" And the inspector is trained to say, "I smell something," but how do because we want to be very clear. We want to get rid of mold. We're mold people, but we want to make sure there's something to get rid of, right? We've been at places where sometimes it's not mold, it's a dead animal, So there's ways to find out for sure. You can do a pre-test and take samples that go to a third-party lab, an unbiased third-party lab, and they'll test them to see if there's mold in the area. So there's all kinds of ways to find out if you have a situation or not, and then move forward accordingly.
Tell people, and if it scares them, good. That's what we want to do. Is mold really a problem?
Here's the thing. I've seen the dark side of mold, and my simple answer is yes. Okay. So, I go into it trying to resolve mold situations. Our company, that's what we do. In fact, the guy who got me started on this is Rusty Tweed, Robert Tweed. His wife was sick with mold originally. So that's what really, we're here to make money like anybody else. Don't get me wrong, but
right.
It started off as a passionate thing because she got sick with mold and found out that so many methods of getting rid of the mold had to do with chemicals and stuff. So she was very sensitive to all of that. Right. So this process isn't so chemically based and everything, So it was safer for her to use. So after she got her mold, contained and under wraps, she and her husband Rusty said, "Man, we should invest in this business." And then Rusty asked me to come on board, which I want to say for the record, I said no eventually, but eventually said yes. But anyway, just got to put that in.
Now, from what I understand, there are a lot of different types of mold. It's not just 1-2 types of mold. There's a lot.
Yeah, there's over 10,000 different species of mold. And actually there's more than that because what happens is mold commingle and co-marriage. So there's Chaetomium, there's Basidiospores, there's Penicillium, there's Aspergillus, there's Stachybotrys, which is known as the black mold, but then there's Penicillium aspergillus. So that's a marriage of both molds. So now there's over 100,000 different spores species. So there's a lot of different types.
So, Ray, is there good and bad mold?
Again, to answer that question fully, I know it sounds like I'm going around in circles. I don't know if there's good mold or bad. I mean, I know that there's bad mold in that it can overwhelm one's body. And depending how your immune system has been successful or unsuccessful in defending itself, that's what happens. So it doesn't matter. It almost doesn't matter the species, because Stachybotrys, which is the black mold, that can affect everybody. Chaetomium, which is similar to Stachy, that can affect everybody. But there's also Penicillium aspergillus, which is very common in California and in a lot of areas. I could find it under most refrigerators. Some people it doesn't affect, but some people it's really bad news. So then you get into that 25%, or you get into that person's immune system, which didn't defend itself, when they're young or younger. So that's why people think like, well, what's a black and white answer? It depends on you. Now, as a mold person, I try to err on that side, on the other side. I don't tell a lot of people this, but I'm going to tell you and the viewers now. When I go in to inspect a home, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, would I put my grandsons in this house? It's a really easy yardstick, and I don't have to think about it, right?
So, Ray, when people contact you, they call you, what have they noticed in their house to make them think that they might have mold?
There's a lot of different things. It could be something visual. If it's visual and they don't know what it is, that's obvious, right? They know what mold might look like and they have an idea, then they'll call us. Or if they smell something and they don't know what it is, they'll do that. But I got to tell you, a lot of times what it is, people will come back and they'll say, I've been living here for 8 years, but after these rains, my kids are sick, my wife's sick, I'm sick. Something's wrong.
Yes.
We did some research on the internet, and we found that mold might be causing this because of some kind of leakage or something. So that's a lot of what happens. Something's wrong, physically. So we're one of the few companies, by the way, I just want to add this little commercial that there are mold doctors. When they tell their patients before they start the protocol on their bodies to remove the mold from their bodies, they say, got to make sure in your home environment, you're safe from mold. And they'll refer them to us or a company that does the dry fog. So instead of trying to remove the mold from the area, we kill the mold in the environment. So that's what's different about us. And we feel like we do it in a safe way. And we have government, referrals and recommendations, but a lot of doctors who we did not solicit, by the way, they found us, they use us. And they refer their patients to us. And we did not solicit them. A lot of these doctors have found out what we do, did some research. So that's something to know. I don't know if that answers your question.
How does mold occur? I mean, if you get sick, there could be a possibility there's mold in the house. What else can people look for?
Well, the first question you asked is, how does the mold happen, right? Well, remember, if we live on planet Earth, there's mold. It's part of planet Earth. So mold comes in and out of everyone's structure 24/7. Okay. Now, whether it stays to colonize or not is a different story. But what makes it colonize? Well, if there's moisture, if there's air, oxygen, if there's a food source, and keep in mind, most everything's a food source to mold. Walls, carpet, wood, even pet hair and dead skin is food to mold. So when those three things come together, but at the right humidity, we'll say, the right temperature, mold's going to grow. And it doesn't make any difference how old or how new the structure is, or how clean or how dirty the structure is. If you have oxygen, a food source, moisture at the right humidity, the right temperature, mold's going to grow, right? So it's a good thing to think with whenever there's a leak or a water intrusion of some kind. Resolve it as soon as you can.
What is when you come out to a house and you find out they have mold? What do you do to get rid of it?
Well, what we do instead of trying to remove the mold, we kill the mold and we use
Okay.
a dry fog process, right? And this process was invented by this gentleman up in Utah. His main company is called Pure Maintenance. In fact, they're nationwide, Pure Maintenance. And he came up with this protocol originally because he was approached by hospitals to come up with a protocol to clean rooms, to clean surgery rooms. So
Wow.
back then, it had to be non-toxic, this product. It had to be EPA certified, had to be FDA certified, and had all these requirements. So that's what the heritage of this product is. So when people say, oh, yeah, I know what dry fog is, if its heritage is not from the hospitals, it's not the same thing. So that's where this thing comes in. So to answer your question, what do? Is we apply, we have three steps. And keep in mind, before I even start these 3 steps, 3 things also need to take place. All water intrusions must be finitely resolved. That means all leaks, roof leaks, pipe leaks, whatever. I don't know, impacting sprinklers, whatever. Second thing
Right.
is all areas must be dry. Now, they don't need to be 0% moisture, but they can't be like 60, 70, 80, 90% moisture. And then the last thing is there must be adequate ventilation. So once those 3 elements are in, our 3-step program consists of this. The first phase of the dry fog kills all existing mold. I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this
Show.
show, thank you. This shows that mold spores are 20 to 30 microns. That's how it gets in the nooks and crannies and the wall plugs. Our process, when it becomes dense and dry, becomes 7.5 microns. That means any place a mold has pushed itself into, we're going to go, because we let it dwell 45 minutes up to an hour in each section, and then we move to the next section. That's why it takes a whole day to do a house. Anyway,
And it spreads too, right? Mold
excuse me?
spreads.
Mold spreads incredibly. Yeah, mold spreads. So we kill the existing mold. And the reason why I'm using that modifier, existing mold, remember, mold's traveling in and out. It's traveling in and out as we speak right now. So we kill the first phase. We kill the existing mold with the first phase. The second phase, which we do the same day, puts an antimicrobial protectorant. So when new mold does come in and out, it can't land any place, which means it can't commingle, can't co-marriage with any existing, and it can't start and create these things called mold factories, which eventually create the mycotoxins, which it expels. And the mycotoxins specifically is what's bad for our bodies, right? That's what's great to universities. The third step is we test. We take samples of all the whole areas that we've done. We send those samples to an unbiased third-party lab. So not to our company, but to an unbiased third-party lab. Even if it passes California standards, if it doesn't pass Mold Zero standards, we do the whole thing all over again. Okay, but usually we get it the first time. So that's specifically what we do.
Do you go into new homes? Somebody's buying a new home and do an inspection?
Yes, yeah. We do new homes. We do quite a few real estate people who are buying a home, people who just, from the seller's point of view, from the buyer's point of view, there's all different aspects. HOA hires us,
Right.
attorneys hire us, property owners hire us, prospective buyers, prospective sellers.
Because I sure would want to know before I bought a house if there's mold in it.
Absolutely. It's one of the things that I think down the line, just like when they do a home inspection, it's part of the list of the mold, but I think they're going to probably, use a form of what we do as a constant variable.
Let me, what about bleach? Is bleach effective in removing mold?
The thing with bleach by itself is not.
Okay.
It's not. In fact, the problem with bleach or any other things, methods of doing it is if you don't really kill the mold, because mold is naturally colonized. Like I mentioned earlier, it's eating, procreating, and spreading, eating, procreating, and spreading. But if mold feels challenged and you don't really kill it, it won't just colonize, it'll sporulate. Right. Like it sounds, that's what it does. So it can go from millions of spores to billions of spores in a short amount of time. So it's going to defend itself if you're not killing. So a lot of times people handymen use bleach, or they use whatever, or they put fans on there, and it's just irritating the mold, and it's going to defend itself and sporulate,
We just got a text from Marley. She's in Malibu. She wants to know, how do you keep mold from occurring?
Well, there's a couple of ways. Like that second phase I mentioned to you, it puts an antimicrobial protectorant. So when new mold comes in, it can't land. So Marley, to give you an idea, I mentioned that mold comes in and out 24/7. The real problem with mold is when it eats and procreates. I mentioned it's eating and procreating. They call it burping and farting, but when it eats and procreates, it burps and farts these things called mycotoxins. Those mycotoxins get randomly released in the air, and they just randomly float. That specifically is what creates the adversities in our human bodies and in mammals and pets. If someone gives you brain fog, respiratory ailment, forgetfulness, tiredness, on ad infinitum, right? So she's asking how to prevent that. So that second phase does that, number one. But there's also these other units that technology has been coming up with that you can install once you do a finite resolving program like this to keep it under handled. And a lot of these products go from anywhere from $1,500 to whatever, $10,000, but they fit in your air conditioning, and they just will kill the incoming mold, right?
What about fogging? Is that very effective?
That's what
Dry
we use.
fogging?
Yeah, we use a dry fog. Now, people say, well, I'm going to dry fog. And it's not like, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
So here's the specifics. I know I'm giving more information that might be needed. If it was just the product that kills the mold with its first phase, I'd just be spraying it. But what kills the mold is what they call a phase change. So if you can imagine, I'm having our technicians are filling up volumes of dense, dry fog in a room. So it can't stay dense and it can't stay dry forever. So when it starts to, whether you want to call it evaporate or assimilate or whatever, distill, we call it a phase change in the mold industry. That dry fog goes to a phase change. What it does when it hits spores, mold spores, it takes out the outer membrane of a mold molecule. So it shatters it. So intrinsically, it's not really even mold anymore, really. It's just DNA-wise, it would show as mold, but really, it can't eat and procreate, which means it can't burp and fart mycotoxins. So that's why it works, right? So a lot of people tell me, well, how does that work? Can I just spray it? That's why you can't spray it. It's not just the product. It's the phase change that kills it. Because biologically, when it meets, it'll shatter that outer membrane of the molecule of mold spores. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's almost like a living cell. That's amazing.
Yeah. Mold spores are living spores. Yeah.
Is it very expensive, Ray, to get rid of mold?
I think we're pretty equitable in what we do. I mean, some people have told me we're a lot cheaper than when guys come in and they're charging, $15,000, $20,000. They're ripping out their walls, they're ripping out their floors. Right. See, a lot of times we don't need to do that because we're going to pass the test. We're going to pass the third-party lab test after that the mold is handled because, as I mentioned, this permeates so much, right? So a lot of times we don't need to do that. And a lot of times the old school way of doing it, and again, I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, and again, a lot of these guys are friends of mine, but the old school way of doing it is to take the mold out of the environment. And a lot of times to them, that company will tear out walls and tear out ceilings. A lot of times that's not needed. So if we can do it less intrusively, we're going to do it. Keep in mind, I have the capability, our company has the capability of opening up walls, of tearing down that stuff, and then fogging, and then putting it back together again. So we can do that. I'm just saying, I would say 60 to 80+% other time we don't need to tear down all 4 walls or something, right? So yeah, we're pretty effective. We have a really good track record, and that's why doctors recommend us, and that's why the government likes us too.
When you're working on a house or a condo, whatever, do the people need to leave while you do the work?
Yeah, even though it's a pretty safe thing, my guys are in regular, they're suited up, right, in masks and in gloves. So no mammals, no human beings, and no pets can be there. No people, no pets, no alarms, because it also sets off alarms. It thinks it's smoke, right? Because it's a dry fog. So people.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So people can't be there while we're doing it, right? But again, as long as it's under 3,500 square feet, maybe even 4,000 square feet, we can do that whole area in a day, right? So it's not like you have to take a hotel or buy a hotel room for your renters, or you stay someplace. If I get access from my crews at like 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, you can be back in that home that evening, right?
Wow.
Safely. Yeah, safely. Now, keep in mind, it's going to smell. There's going to be a smell to it. Now, people always tell me, hey, it smells like Easter. It does not smell like Easter. It smells like vinegar, if anything. So that smell is going to linger for a while, depending on what area you are. If you're close to the beach, you're not the valley. But it's a harmless, absolutely harmless, and it'll dissipate. It'll take care of itself. But the point is that you're going to be safe.
Ray, I see why your company is so good at what you do. I mean, there's so much to know about mold. At first, I went, well, how do you make a whole entire show about mold? But I've got so many more questions, and thank God you're going to be back with us again next month.
Yeah.
For those of you who are listening on radio, give them your phone number, Ray.
Yeah, we're 626-671-8885. We're in South Pasadena, San Marino area, but we service a good part of Southern California. We're all over the place. So you can look up Mold Zero. Mold Zero Florida might come up too. We're Mold Zero LLC. Florida's Mold Zero. Our website is moldzerollc.com. But either one will get you to us. They'll send you back to me.
And Ray is going to be back with us again next month. And if you've missed part of the show, you can go to iHeart and you can listen to the show again. Ray, it is such a pleasure. What a great job. This is your first show with us, and I can't wait till you come back again next month.
I appreciate the time with you, Stephen. I appreciate
Thanks,
you
Ray.
out there, man.
And listen, if you got a question, you can give Ray a call, 626-671-8885. The name of the company is Mold Zero. Mold Zero. What a great name for the company. Anyhow, that'll do it for us. We'll be back with you next Tuesday at 2 o'clock with more Ask the Experts. We love doing this for you folks, and we hope you enjoy the shows, enjoy the education you get from the shows. If you got any suggestions, give us a call, 954-336-3767. We'll talk to you soon. Everybody stay blessed.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.